Here to help us break down the plausibility of the candidates' proposals and what each policy would mean for the average working American, I want to bring in our next guest. Steve Hayes is a tax attorney and the president of fairtax.com. Steve, thank you for joining us. So we kind of went over a lot of these ambitious proposals that a lot of these progressive candidates are hoping to implement. And in order to do so, they've kind of proposed something called either a wealth tax or a marginal tax rate. Is this a plausible type of solution for what they're proposing?
Well, first of all, we're assuming that they even care about paying for it, Alex. The real truth is, I don't believe any of them have any interest in proposing a way to really pay for it, because that means they have to confront what the cost is. You know, there have been numerous studies that if you confiscated all the wealth of people making over 480,000, it wouldn't fund Medicare for all for more than 3 to 4 months, 6 months. And obviously, that's a one-time solution. So raising the tax rates, raising the corporate rate. I mean, Bernie and Elizabeth Warren and Pete, they all want to go back to 35%. That's going to create havoc with our competition abroad. That's going to create a problem. It's going to reduce people's 401ks because the value of those companies are going to go down because the taxes have to be paid along. So how are they going to pay them along? They're going to pay it along by either A, increasing prices to each of us, or B, decreasing dividends. Either way, it has a direct and dramatic effect on the economy. If you look at Bernie Sanders, he wants to get rid of the estate exemption. You know, you look at some of these other proposals, they're talking about, Alex, taking capital gains and making people who have capital gains, even if they're not realized, pay tax on them.
Right. I mean, to that point, too, so they don't necessarily let you know the exact price, and they don't necessarily know the exact way that they would pay for it. And a lot of people say that is kind of, in fact, they would call it modern monetary theory, the idea where you kind of ignore the deficit and you kind of put money into these programs in hopes that it kind of comes back into the economy. They say that they're investing in the individuals, in the people in America. Is there any kind of example that we can go off of where that has either worked or failed? Is that even a plausible type of solution?
Well, it's certainly not ever worked in the past, because eventually there's a person who comes to collect the bill, and you can't get so far along. And the general way it's happened is when people tried to do this. You can look at Venezuela today. You can look at Nazi Germany. Well, it wasn't Nazi Germany, but the Weimar Republic. And what happens is they issue more money. You have inflation. And you have great inflation, and their economists are shaking their heads today at why, with what we've borrowed today, we don't have more inflation. And there are a lot of reasons potentially for that, but they're going to run out. You know, we're the best security for many, many countries to have our dollars so they don't go in circulation. But what you're talking about doing, and this is where I really get upset with these people, I don't believe they ever intend to pay for any of this. Whether it's forgiveness of student loans, whatever it is, Alex, they just want to borrow the money.
And you look at the other side of the equation, and of course there's conservatives who, first of all, like lowering the tax rate, the corporate tax rate and the individual tax rate. And a lot of conservatives actually look at what's called the Laffer curve, the idea that if you can kind of find that sweet medium a little bit in between how much a person is taxed and how much that they're saving as a result of tax cuts, that money will eventually flow back into the government and create some revenue. Is that kind of an example that's a little bit better tested?
Well, it's very much tested, because they found that by reducing the rates, they collected more money. When they reduced the capital gain rate, they got more money from capital gain taxes. So people have this idea that somehow they can work it out on paper, like an Excel spreadsheet, and that all of us are robotically going to perform as they've said. Is somebody who's got, think about this a minute, Alex. If you were going to try to pick on somebody to extort wealth, would you want to go after the wealthiest people who can hire the very best people to protect their wealth? What an insane idea. And that's really the basic thing that they're looking at. Now, one of the problems they're seeing, though, and Bloomberg, to his credit, brought this up, is that there has been literally trillions of dollars lost to the government through evasion. None of these guys are talking about it. None of these guys want to tell people that the real cost of Medicare for all might be another 20 to 30% of on their own taxes.
No, and I think you bring up a good point too, because that's something that they're going to have a problem with going into 2020 is kind of making these big promises and kind of paralleling that against something that has been proven in the past. So, especially when it comes to money, a lot of people are a little bit hesitant to make big risks when it comes to that. But Steve, I really appreciate you coming on and kind of breaking down this complex issue for us. Thank you very much.